Okay, so blended learning gives us a lot of tools and techniques, but putting them all together into something coherent can be really challenging. So I want to share some of my thoughts about how to structure the different activities of blended learning and also how to streamline them, because they can be time consuming, they can be demanding in terms of our knowledge and accessibility of technology. So this is based on my experiences in technical writing, teaching technical writing at Temple University's College of Engineering. And sorry, one ahead. This is blended learning, structured and streamlined. So in this course, it was the required writing, researching, and citing course that engineering students are required to take at Temple. And they were asked to do a semester-long research project in which they had to research the literature, in which they had to write a long, very detailed paper. So they needed help structuring this, they needed help breaking things down into components. So this was one element of how to structure this was the, what I call the self-analysis portion of this. So they had to do these short answer, small assignments very frequently throughout the semester. We did them at the very beginning of the semester where they were first forming their idea. We did them right as they were starting their research, between the research and writing the paper, between the first and second drafts of the paper. So this was meant to help students structure their own writing and research, and it was also meant to kind of streamline some things. We did these in class so that students wouldn't have to do this out of class. They were doing a lot of other work outside of class. It was meant to streamline things for me as the instructor, because these were meant to be easy to review, easy to grade, easy to provide feedback on. I mainly built the self-analysis assignments by turning assignment descriptions into checklists, by taking lesson plans and making it into short answer questions. So that's what they were doing, working independently. They would upload it to Canvas or any LMS. At the end of a class, they worked in class on this. And while we did that, I sat outside of class, and they would come out one by one, and we would talk about what they were doing. A lot of their self-analysis questions were about pacing. Have you found sources yet? Where are you at? And so on. So students were very talkative because we were doing this at the same time that they were doing this self-analysis, so they had things to provide. They tended to be very honest about things. And so this was a way to reinforce concepts, to kind of blend the independent computer-based work they were doing in the class with more traditional, personalized, face-to-face meetings. And I think this approach really was a nice way to blend technology in a kind of not overly demanding way. All we had was student laptops and Canvas. They didn't need extra technology. We were able to do this in the scope of a regular traditional course. So those were the advantages. But there were some problems too, and these are things I'd love to talk to you about, get your feedback on. But a lot of things didn't, I think could be more developed about this. For instance, the self-analysis process doesn't always go well. What students see when they look in the mirror and look at their own work does not always comport with what I might see in their own work. So you have to be very careful, I think, about this self-analysis process. You have to not use this as the kind of exercise where they really dig deeply and where you're going to provide a lot of detailed feedback. I think it's good if the self-analysis questions are very leading, so that they can't really answer them incorrectly and cement knowledge incorrectly, so that they can't go too far astray, so that as an instructor, since these are coming every week, every other week, these assignments, they can't kind of go in the wrong direction. So being very careful about how you do the self-analysis is key. Another thing, students miss the structure. I try to structure things in a very careful way, but it was almost as if students, like one part of their brains would do like an annotated bibliography about research, wouldn't translate into the actual research and writing. So they would miss things. You know, they miss structure. They wouldn't write about the things they talked about in their annotated bibliographies. They would just do great annotated bibliographies, but then not address these in their papers. So I think how blended learning is structured by us as instructors doesn't always come through to students. And I really want to see how students need to understand the structure of courses better. I think that's one thing I want to try to study a little bit more. So I'd love to talk to you about these things. My name is Geoff Keston. I'm at Temple, and thank you very much. Appreciate it.